Hello everybody, and welcome to an unusual episode of the Nausicaäst. Today we will bring you an interview. We had the opportunity to talk to the creators of the Wandering Tavern, which is a Ghibli-inspired TTRPG module, which features a very delightful, interesting place full of adventure.
Hello? Are you there? It's Amelia. The secrets of the Wandering Tavern are coming for me. I know too much. And now, so will you. The Wandering Tavern is 15 layers of corruption, gambling, exotic restaurants, hotels, expansive workstations, and buzzing accommodations. Amongst these are 23 unique locations that range from lavish establishments down to the city's seedy underbelly. But don't worry, I've got detailed battle maps of the entire floating metropolis, so all you players and GMs can find your way around. Within the bustle of this colossal airship, deadly secrets plague the air. Luckily, I was able to collect scathing testimonies from over 30 NPC patrons and staff while evading the grasp of the ruthless Claw Militia. These testimonies were laced with 30 interconnected plot hooks. It all seems to be linked. The unsolved disappearance of the engineering team, the Claw Mafia's black market empire, the automaton mutiny brewing in the depth, and even the lingering spirits of the deceased. Oh, I didn't mention that. As the sun sets, shadowy forms seep from dark corners to materialize throughout the Wandering Tavern. Hold tight to your wards as spirits roam, looking for answers, a quiet conversation, or their next victim. But don't despair. There's still plenty to enjoy if you become marooned here. I've eaten sensational food, found a myriad of powerful items, won games of chance, and delighted in the tavern's vibrant festivities. However, if you do need a quick getaway, there are 6 unique plug-and-play airships with more than 50 parts and stations to facilitate your escape. The Wandering Tavern can be an entire campaign setting, or simply dropped into your current world. So, climb aboard, if you dare. The Wandering Tavern is available now. Link in the description.
And now I'll just cut to the interview and let Playton take it away.
Hello and welcome to a very special side episode of the Nausicaäst, the podcast where we go through various works by Studio Ghibli and the people from that studio and give them the deep and detailed analysis we feel that they deserve. This time, it's a time for something quite different. We were offered to do a special actual play one-shot. We were using the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rule set of The Wandering Tavern, a wonderful little Ghibli-inspired tabletop RPG setting/adventure module. And we get to talk to a couple of the very interesting people who wrote this very delightful little product and bring some of our own knowledge and curiosity about everything Ghibli related to it. I was the game master for that specific one-shot, which you can find over at Round the Table. There will definitely be a link in the description. I am, of course, joined by our ever-present host, Njard.
Hey, I'm Njard. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm looking forward to this episode, which will feature my other main hobby very extensively.
Yes, indeed. Once again, I am Playton Skull, or just Playton. My pronouns are he, him. New to the Nausicaäst, I believe, is our TTRPG designer connection, Syzer.
Hi, I'm Syzer, or Dread Pirate Syzer, he, him, and I am the designer of Skies of Fortune, the Sky Pirate RPG, and also the lead on Round the Table, the podcast on which we did the actual play for this.
Yes, indeed. And our very special guests this evening/morning, depending on the time zone of the various people involved. Emily and Bodhi, would you introduce yourselves?
Hello. So I'm Bodhi, the son half of the Homie and the Dude team that have brought you books like Syzers, The Wandering Tavern, and are looking forward to The Scorched Basin coming out in the middle of the year 2025. So super excited for that. And my pronouns are he, him, and whatever else you fancy calling me. So yeah, that's me. Go on ahead.
And I'm Emily, she, her. And I was one of the writers for Wandering Tavern and the current project, Scorched Basin, which is exciting.
She's too humble. She's the lead writer. She's too humble. She's too lead writer. Lead writer.
You also wrote it, so it was a big team effort, but yeah.
Right. Well, very, very glad to be here, to have both of you here. Let's just to get the ball rolling. I guess how did you get into the RPG writing design space, and what's the origin story of the Wandering Tavern? What were you aiming for with it?
So I'll tell the first half of the story, and then I'll let Emily tag in for the second half. So, by the way, thank you for having us, guys. It's a super pleasure to be here with you all, and super stoked to be able to discuss, a topic that we love, TTRPGs, as well as Studio Ghibli stuff. And, you guys are awesome at what you do. So thank you for having us. We really super appreciate it.
Not as much as we appreciate you.
No problem.
We'll be dueling back and forth throughout. So.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, dude. So basically, it all started when Tom is my father, we, during COVID, started a podcast and we named it Homie and the Dude. Then from there, we basically spiraled into, we were interviewing, Olympians, professional skateboarders, artists, musicians, all this kind of stuff, and trying to discover what that was. And then one of the people we interviewed was a jiu-jitsu person who told us that he played Dungeons and Dragons in his spare time. And we were like, oh, that's super interesting. And we talked to him a little bit more and got to know a little bit more about him. I played the game when I was younger in high school, so I knew a little bit more than my father at that point. And after that interview, Tom basically went and discovered the actual play group known as Acquisitions Incorporated, who is run by Chris Perkins, has the whole PAX crew with them. And he found one of their actual plays that they did live at PAX and showed it to me, and we were both just like, holy shit, Patrick Rothfuss is incredible in it, Mike Rahulik is off the chain, everyone is
oh my God, Jim
really, really good. Yeah, right, Jim Dark, right, exactly, so all of that was what inspired us. And then from there, we fell in love with TTRPGs. I started GMing for us, and we then started making actual plays. So I made a world of floating islands called the Sky Realm, homebrewed it, and then we played an actual play in that for ages and things like that. And eventually, it was coming to the time just before the whole OGL crisis happened, when Spelljammer was coming out. I'm not sure if you guys remember a couple years ago when that was going on.
That was a really, really big thing in the RPG community space. I'm sure listeners of this podcast might not be into tabletop RPGs, but just the basic gist of it is that Wizards of the Coast, who own Dungeons and Dragons, as well as Magic the Gathering, who themselves are owned by Hasbro, made some moves to change the pseudo open source way that the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rules work, which would make it quite expensive and complicated to make content for it as third-party developers, and that led to a huge backlash from the community, both the professional and amateur and just general players in the design space around in that whole milieu. And they eventually went back on it, but in the meantime, the really passionate part of the hobby have sort of cooled a bit on Dungeons and Dragons recently. So that's the gist of it.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it better. You absolutely nailed it. So yeah, this whole turmoil was going on in our community, and everything. This was back before, back when Twitter, D&D Twitter, was actually a really beautiful, safe space before Elon Musk existed and took it over. and it was a very different time, and Spelljammer was coming out. Now, I had a world of floating islands, so I was like, I would love some rules for airships because there isn't really anything out there. And Spelljammer came out, and in my opinion, Wizard of the Coast shat the bed very hard with that series of books. I really didn't enjoy the lack of mechanics that they provided for all that stuff. It felt like, more of a cash grab than a hearty, passionate project that they put out. And so from that point on, I decided to make Syzers. Now, Syzers was the vehicle mechanic system that we designed for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. After we released that book and had our Kickstarter go through and all this kind of stuff, we were kind of debating what we were going to do for our next project. And at that point, Emily was working for Homie and the Dude in our marketing area, basically, and was helping my father do marketing stuff. Though I knew Emily had been a writer and had trained as a writer. So we basically just turned to Emily and were like, hey, would you like to help us write this next one? And you were super on board. We instantly kind of looked at what we had from Syzers, which was the Wandering Tavern was actually a ship in Syzers, and people loved it, and we made an STL for it, and people went apeshit basically about it. So we were like, let's make that whole thing into a setting. And that's when you came on board. Do you want to go from there and talk about the rest of it?
Yeah, honestly, so exciting. So I did a degree in creative writing, and then I'd done a variety of different writing jobs. I wrote for marketers and law firms and stuff like that. So all very depressing, boring stuff. And I always wanted to write creatively. And my partner, Ben, he works for Homie and the Dude as the operations manager. So I kind of wiggled my way in when I was between jobs at some point to do a little bit of marketing just to kind of keep things rolling. And then when they were talking about this new project and Bodhi was like, do you want to write? I was like, yes, please. I would love to write some creative stuff. And I think it was about that point that we started talking about the Studio Ghibli influences. And so the Wandering Tavern, the ship, which is what the book is based on, is very much like Howl's Moving Castle inspired by, and I always got a lot of Spirited Away, which I'd honestly really recently seen. And it was just a lot of all these grand giant ideas that we then had to kind of whittle down into, as it always goes, whittle down into something that we could be really proud of. And yeah, it's been a really, really fun journey, and I'm very excited that we're continuing to do books and explore new settings and stuff.
And I'll just add at the end, Emily came in, having very little TTRPG writing experience.
I never played a TTRPG. My first TTRPG was at this table with Bodhi as the GM, which was amazing.
I appreciate your kind words. And so, Emily came in and she brought a beautiful novelistic style to the book, which, you can really feel in a lot of the lore. There's a lot of jokes written throughout. There's a lot of really nice, deeper kind of world building stuff in there that Emily started bringing to this that I was missing from my writing style. So, I'm really weird and autistic about mechanics and things like that. So
I'm floofy. So between the two of us,
we managed to make something that we were both super proud of. So that's kind of the origin of the Wandering Tavern.
Right. That as someone who's read it pretty in pretty good detail, preparing for being the GM, I'll tell you that it does definitely make sense to me that when you describe it like that, because it has this, like you say, this novelistic style, some really neat little pieces of microfiction, sprinkle in little dialogues to get you into the setting, little in-character notes and other classic stuff like that. But also this some very specific mechanical stuff in there as well, I can definitely tell the like mechanics nerd in once the Syzers are introduced, which I unfortunately had to just cut that down a bit because running a like relatively short adventure might become a little bit bogged down in all the new mechanics. But it would be really interesting to really go into them like in more detail at some other point.
Hell yeah. The mechanics thing is it's one of those where all of our books, in every mechanic that we put in our book is modular, so it can be taken out of the book and used by itself.
And that's kind of the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Trying to make it as diverse as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to make it so that every little bit is usable, and we design these books. They're system agnostic and fully customizable. So GMs like yourself, Clayton, can really choose the pieces that they want. And it sounds like you did that, which ticks our box. That means that you're doing the right thing, and we're stoked that you're doing that as well and selecting the bits that are important for you, because that's what we do as GMs all day when we're planning sessions.
And people play differently. Like some people really like the mechanical side of things. Some people are more theater of the mind and like more of the role play stuff. So yeah, it's good.
100%.
Yeah, there was something to balance there, especially when we had these like massive maps to work with, which I'm not sure. Like we were doing it in Roll20. I'm not sure it could have handled like doing the full size maps like in the program with all the tokens you'd need to. It was a really interesting experience for me, especially because I've been a GM for at least like over a decade at this point, since I was like 15, 16, and I've very rarely done like pre-written adventure modules. So it was an interesting like challenge to make it fit both my play style and the needs of the one shot. But speaking of the getting it to work for different people, you mentioned it, and that's a really interesting part of the book that I noticed. You were very like explicit about it. Yes, it's being 5e compatible, and it has like stat blocks and rules for all the different like magic items and different NPCs and enemies in 5th edition rule terminology. But you also include some more descriptive stat blocks that could be like fitted to different systems. So what was that part of your has that always been part of your like design philosophy with Sky Syzers as well? Is it something you just started doing for this particular module? And what, if any, specific non-D&D systems did you test it with?
Dude, what a great question! What a fantastic question! You've done good research here. So the answer to that question, dude, is we came in playing Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. That was like where it all started for us. I had played 3rd edition prior to, but where it really started was 5th. And when the OGL stuff happened, dude, it put such an unbelievably sour taste in my mouth. And we were at that point writing Sky Syzers. Now, our Sky Syzers book is like 90% of the book actually accidentally was system agnostic and is just like a new mechanic system that's almost like a layover or like an attachment, a DLC package almost to 5th edition with just D&D terminology. So I was already kind of apt at writing in that style. And then when they did that, dude, it just pissed me off. And I was like, even though we have to conform to the fact that they are, the big fish in the industry, and if we as a company want to succeed, we do have to conform to that to a degree. We also wanted to make it, for the people who love other systems, people who love, Cthulhu, people who love, the One Ring, people who love Tales from the Loop, people who love Morkborg, people who love, Shadowdark, whatever system you want to play, we've made sure that this can work with that in some capacity. And so the answer is no, it wasn't originally part of the design process. I decided at a certain point that I was like, we aren't going to just cater to this. We need to cater to the wider audience. And a big part, as you'll find out about Homie and the Dude, is our whole thing. One of our biggest tenets as a company is community. You know, we only market through the community. We don't div anything to Facebook ads. We don't do anything on YouTube. We don't do anything like that. You know, we only work within the community and try and bring up the community. So a big part of that decision was me going, look, it's one of our tenets. We need to be for the community. And at the moment, D&D is not the one that is, you know, they're not fighting for the community. And so that's what led me to writing this system agnostic style that you can see in the book, which I've developed. You can see the early development in this book. You'll see a much more fleshed out and refined version in our next book, basically called The Scorched Basin, where I have continued to go further and deeper into that system agnostic style to bring you mechanics that really can be played in any sort of style, with dice or without dice as well, is, you know, a whole thing that we're looking at. And the answer is, have we play tested it in a bunch of different systems? The answer is yes. For example, we've used Orbital Blues, we've used Pirate Borg, we've used Mork Borg, we've played Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We definitely are planning to do some sort of Tales of the Loop in there for some kids, because we think that would be really, really fun. I've also got Blades in the Dark that I haven't played yet, that I'm planning on running a session in there. You know, it works for pretty much anything. So yeah, we've tested it in a bunch of different systems so far.
So if I could piggyback on that a little bit, do you think that system agnostic is the way that you are going to be headed in the future, or are you maybe thinking about designing your own system at some point? Any thought put into that?
Again, an excellent question. You're asking all the right questions tonight, guys. The answer is we will continue to make every book that we write as much as possible system agnostic, because we want this to be something that people can use across the board, basically. We want our worlds to apply to everyone, not just one specific group. However, I will give you a little teaser, and it's the first time I'm actually saying it publicly, so I'll give you a little teaser just for this show. We do have some things in the pipeline. We're looking at what the next book after The Scorched Basin will be, and that might have a system involved in it. And then further than that, there might be a Homie and the Dude specific system that is in production at the moment, under a title that I'll simply just call Project Blackthorn for the time being.
Ooh, nice.
Ooh.
It's a good title.
You've been keeping that one close to your chest. I'm surprised right now.
Yeah, we've not said that publicly. So you asked the right question.
You can tell Tom that you've just done that.
Yeah. You asked the right question, so you get the right answer.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
No, it's like a dialogue tree. You did all the right checks.
Exactly. You typed in just the right command.
Well, speaking of systems considerations, that was something we were interested in discussing, because we entered into this thing as a Studio Ghibli film analysis podcast, and seeing this as like a sort of adaptation, or like clearly like very inspired by a lot of like the aesthetics of Studio Ghibli. We've already heard like mention, you know, Spirited Away. There's all the strange spirits that awaken every night and need to be dealt with and or avoided. There's of course the strange amalgam construction of the whole Wandering Tavern, very much being like a flying house moving castle, like from the very end of that movie, just bigger and a full on like town with more like hotels than residents.
Yeah, it really feels like that you really brought in the steampunk influences that we see in a lot of Miyazaki's work in there.
So we see a lot of the aesthetics. What, if any, like thematic elements from that sort of like not just Studio Ghibli, but like related places, like sources of inspiration? What thematic and writing parts did you draw from?
This is really funny because so I find when you create something new, you always are taking stuff from everywhere around you, and I find that in a lot of our work. If we're coming up with a name for something, or like even like if you're looking at an NPC, like trying to figure out who the NPC is going to be, you generally start taking pieces from different places, from different areas of your life, or things that you're inspired by, or different bits. I think that just kind of happens naturally to kind of create something new in like a kind of Lego building block kind of way. The Wandering Tavern definitely, obviously, like it's kind of part of our thing, but it's hugely Studio Ghibli inspired. And like I feel like I'm definitely not the most educated in Studio Ghibli, but there's just something about the worlds that they create and like the magical kind of, but grounded, but like mystical and huge kind of atmospheres that they kind of bring to life in those movies that it's just so gorgeous and inspiring. And we definitely wanted to try and like capture up some of that magic in a bottle for the Wandering Tavern.
It's a great way to put it.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely steampunk roots. We really love that over here.
Yeah. I would say, as well, like a saying I've always loved, it's something that I heard a long time ago when I started GMing, which is a good GM is only as good as the obscure references that they make. And I really love that saying, and it speaks a lot. And me and Em, like Em said, we take little bits from, so many different, things. So like, I'll give you an example off the bat with Sal, for example.
Yeah.
Right. He's a character the other players haven't met him yet.
Okay.
Spoilers, but
I won't say too much.
Let's just say at first he's a weird gnome in the like living down in the like laundry rooms deep in the depths of the tavern.
Yes, exactly. So Sal, he's this old disheveled dude, and he's like, from the outside very hunched and very like meh kind of thing. But underneath that, he's actually like, this is a little bit of spoiler, but he's like, gives you that Uncle Iroh like ripped vibes. Like he's a little bit more jacked than you expect kind of thing.
that scene in the prison where Uncle Iroh's like
doing push-ups and pull-ups.
Doing push-ups, yeah.
Exactly. So like we took that inspiration. Then if you look at his weapon, and he has a thing called the training weights, which then can be attached together to make a glaive, basically. That is inspired both by Rock Lee from Naruto and also from Blue Eye Samurai, the animated show that just came out on Netflix, I think last year. And it's a combination of those two concepts put together. So even just in that one character, I'm just talking about like abilities that they have, not even like lore, history, personality, or anything. That's like the level of amalgamation that we do with this stuff. Yeah. So, what Em's saying is dead on. Sorry, Em, continue.
No, I mean, you nailed it. It gets kind of funny because I look back and I'm like flipping through these pages and I'm like, oh, this is the different points that I was at in my life. Like I was really into New Girl for a period of while I was writing this book, and Sal's cat is called Ferguson because I was like, let me slip this in here. So yeah, it's silly stuff like that. And yeah, so I don't think it's even meditated sometimes. Like I think sometimes it's just like
just happens, yeah.
Like I don't know if you guys have read. There's a series of books that Bodhi is just obsessed with by Brandon Sanderson, and for the one shot for the holiday special. One of the items is like Kaladin's candle, Kaladin's matchstick. And I randomly came up with that name just by mixing syllables together that sounded about right and gave it kind of the feel that I wanted. And it turns out, like when I Googled it afterwards, to be like, okay, let's make sure this isn't actually a thing before I plug it in. It's like, oh, this is a character from Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah,
and I'm
I've just been talking around you too
much. I've said this character's name too many times. I've subconsciously picked it up
and plugged it in.
So yeah, it's
funny.
I love the creative process is wild.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear stories of like musicians who like just like jamming out with their bands and coming up with a new tune and being really happy with it before someone walks in and like, hey, I know that song.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly, dude.
It's a problem.
That's exactly the vibe. So yeah, you have to check on all that good stuff. That's why we're a big part of what we do is research as well. Like, if we put in, like a plant in this place, we make sure that it would be relevant for that environment and things. A lot of what we do as well as part of this is research and things. I grew up with Studio Ghibli stuff. I've watched a menagerie of their works and have loved it. And so, pulling in references and things that we've loved since we were kids, was pretty easy. And I think you said, like, what was the essence? I love how you were like, it's that the big scale, compact it down into something what feels very small and consumable. Yeah. And we wanted it to be cute, and we wanted there to be, fun, cute stuff like the Bake Off and like fun, cute things like that. But we also wanted there to be a dark, underbelly, because almost all Miyazaki movies come with some level of like twisted, darkness to them. And so we wanted to bring a bit of that to it as well. And, it's one of those things that we really put a lot of time and thought into, but appreciate you guys looking in and diving into all of that.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Just staying on the track of like the inspiration and tone especially. I'm wondering whether so how should I put this? The overall like structure of the Wandering Tavern is very much like I've been describing this as a sort of a social mega dungeon. Like there's like there's a lot of like basically every single section, every single like location is one that's populated by people. I mean until night falls, and then there's a lot of spirits around in the hallways, but there's always a little like hint, like here's a little plot hook you could like run into and follow along, which I thought was really interesting. But also it sort of stretches around to like it's you need to, as a game master and probably as a writer, this like fit it into the very combat centric system of 5th edition. And I was wondering what considerations you made to make it less combat centric, and how much do you feel that the initial like 5th edition focus of like I know you say that you were very like deliberately making sure to have it system agnostic. But having that 5th edition experience and initially going into it with that, did that affect how violent the sorts of conflicts you were writing, how they came to be?
That's a super interesting question. God, you guys are nailing it. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I would say so. I'll answer that from a mechanical perspective, and a little bit of something else, and then I'll let Em fill in about some plot hook stuff as well, because that's super interesting in terms of the social stuff. So mechanically, yeah, D&D is all about combat, dude. It's a fight simulator, realistically when it comes down to it, and it's great for that. We added elements of the book that would apply to that. Part of the system agnostic writing is considering that, in some systems, there is no dice rolling for attack. It's, describe this to me, or, there's not even a combat mechanic at all. Do you know what I mean? And so, some of that is, up to interpretation by the GMs and things like that. So, yeah, I would say we definitely, and when it comes down to, me and Em were talking about this today, I like very grungy, like, dude, I grew up, loving like year one Batman comics, and like, and things like that are just like a bit more grounded and just about like real problems that people are facing. So it's why I love that if you really look into Don Leon, like it doesn't actually feel like, if you just read his stuff alone, he doesn't feel like a bad guy. But then when you realize what he's doing and how he acts, he's like he's a total dick, and so I think I love really mashing genres in that way of bringing, because I also love action comedy. I grew up watching Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan and Tony Jaa, kung fu movies and stuff as a kid. So I love martial arts and I love fighting. So we mashed that stuff together. Now, something interesting.
Hence the butler with the knife boots.
Exactly. Oh, Tobias. He's so sweet. I like him.
Exactly. And you know, another thing you mentioned is, you know, as a GM, you had to find out how this was going to work. You had to find out how you were going to like make this apply. You also mentioned you don't like running modules as much. I'm the same dude. I don't like running pre-written modules. I like running stuff that I can homebrew off of, or I can have as like a foundational building point to homebrew off of, which is what we try and do in our books. So that's why we give people plot hooks that then kind of link to other plot hooks and don't have a specific adventure arc or things like that. Yeah. Because we want you as the GM to have the freedom to develop it in the system that you're playing, the style that you play in, and exactly what you and your table need/want. And I know M definitely looked way deep into the social stuff. I know the whole social thing, like,
yeah,
I've never thought of it being a social dungeon, which is the most hilarious thing. I'd never thought of that. And that's such a great descriptor. Yeah, go for it, Em. What were you going to say?
Yeah, honestly, the plot hooks were one of the best parts about writing it. And I mean, other than all the like the granular little details, but I think at our core, this is like a setting book. So we really did want to kind of capture, it's a contained location that you can either have as like its own thing, or you can drop it into a world that you've already been running a campaign in, or like anything like that. We wanted it to be really like mobile almost. But amongst that, then we have this like tight-knit community who, as you said, like they're so smushed together, and that was definitely like Spirited Away, like when they're in the bathhouse and everyone's on top of each other, and like it's just, that was definitely like what we were kind of trying to achieve. So like throughout the book, there's like secret romances, or like little feuds, or little friendships, or like unrequited loves, and like all these tiny little things that like don't really matter, but at the same time they make it feel a bit more lived in, a bit more whole. And I don't know, for like D&D, having a little bit more of like because obviously combat is such a big thing in D&D, but like being able to be like, okay, here's like a little character and they've got a random strife with another character, and like, oh, maybe we just randomly follow that storyline, and it's got nothing to do with like the combat elements, but it's just a different kind of fun.
Do you know what I think? Final bit I'll add to this is, you know, you can play the Wandering Tavern, like you said, as a social thing. You literally don't even have to fight anyone. You could just deal with everything here socially. And you could also come in and it could be an all combat session where you're heisting the place, you know, and you're trying to heist something from within it. And you don't have to engage in any social stuff here at all. You don't even have to talk to people. You could kill every person you walk past and it wouldn't matter. Both are completely playable, which I think is part of what we wanted to achieve with all of that.
And like, so whereas an adventure, it's like you kind of like you have to kind of lay out exactly what you do step by step, and you get a little pigeonholed. We kind of wanted to give these plot hooks where some of them are just little tiny ones, and some of them, like, we do have a couple which are like overarching lore, so with like Don Leon, or with like the automaton kind of storyline, where it's like, which basically we just tried to give everybody all of the cake.
We tried to give everybody the whole cake. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
Do you want to run a cute little bake-off and have all your players compete to like make cute things? Do you want to save the automaton in the elevator? Do you want to, like, whatever you want to do, you can do it. That's that was the dream. That was what we were kind of trying to achieve.
For sure.
So now you got me imagining like what the genocide route might look like.
Oh no!
Look, man. Look, it happens. When you get the wrong table, you get a table of murder hobos, you never know. You never know.
So with all these interconnected NPCs that we've got, you know, in creating this whole like sort of verite ecosystem, do you have any favorite NPCs that
this is a terrible question. Why would you do this to me?
You have to pick a favorite. You got to pick one. There has to be at least just one, right?
This is a bit of a joke in the office because when I was writing The Wandering Tavern, it was a lot of I'd just be like, oh, I really love this person. I really love this person. And then like, everybody else is like, you said that about the last one, and the one before that, and the one before that. So like, pick a favorite. I definitely have this. I just love Mordek, who runs the little shop, and he's like, everybody thinks he's cute, but he's just like so grumpy. I love him. I love. Tobias the butler is probably up there. Asterion, the weapons master. I just love him. Honestly, I think I didn't mind him either way. And then the art came back, and our artist Alex he's just a scientist. He just it's one of those things where you give him a brief for a character and he'll bring something back which is not at all what you're expecting, but it's so much better. And I think Asterion was one of those for me where he just looked so unbelievably cool, and he's got like a little bit of a dark past I think that, I love all of them. This is the problem. I love Coco. She's cool. Angel is amazing. It's a problem, honestly.
This is Emily's. Guys, you've unlocked a truly addictive part of Emily's personality where she falls in love with every NPC Emily creates. She's in love with them.
I don't understand how I like them so much, but I do. They're really cute.
Just like, give me a second. I'm finding a way to add them in as soon as possible in the next session.
So I would say on my end, for me, in terms of NPCs, I'm going to throw a shift out of there. I really love Amelia, the girl who wrote this book. She's one of my all-time favorite characters. The whole idea that this whole book is written by a journalist is one of my favorite things. And I love her character. Yeah. And I love, a little Easter egg that me and Emily put in the book is all the notes in the book that are written by Amelia are numbered. If you put the notes in order, it tells a story of her time in the Wandering Tavern. And
like getting a bit in over her head, right?
Yes, exactly. She starts off really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and by the end, she's like, "Get me the fuck out of here!" and that's kind of the vibe we wanted for everyone. So I love her, but so many of these characters I put a lot in mechanically as well. Like I would say Sal is a big one for me. I love Asterion. I love Jane Murphy. I love Tobias. But I would say for me overall, it's got to be Don Leon or Leon Claw as he's known in this book. He actually is the older, later version of him exists in Sky Zephyr. So if you want to see him as an adult after he's had his time on the Wandering Tavern, he served his time under his father's instruction, he's actually in Sky Zephyrs as well. So he was one of the first characters I ever actually wrote for D&D ever. And I was so glad to be able to include him now twice in books, once as older him and once as younger him. So that was like one of those moments where I was really just super thankful I got to include him in these books, basically.
While on the subject, I'm curious, are there any characters in here that are based on specific player characters or NPCs? It sounds like when we describe Leon, that he was like a villain in something you wrote.
Yes, that's a great question. So I'll answer and let Em go. So my thing is this. Almost all of these characters have some sort of inspiration from somewhere. So if you look at Leandro Schmitty, we literally were just like Shmi from the old Peter Pan.
Yeah, the art makes that pretty clear.
Yeah, exactly. We were like Shmi there, dude, throughout this, Sal is an amalgamation of different things. Cogswell is a combination of the bad guy from the animated movie Robots with BB-8. Was like, that's how we got to him, basically. All of these characters are inspired by pop culture stuff that we love, characters that we've come up with ourselves. The only ones that I would say have come from outside of this that weren't specifically fresh for this book is Leon. Leon originally he's the mafia don in a city that I have in my homebrew world, the Sky Realm. One of my favorite characters there. Then we have Nodrog, Yesmar, and Amijah, which is Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver. We're just straight up inspired off of them and are just complete rips on those two guys because we think they're hilarious.
That was a really crazy day in the office. That was us all just way too hyper, having way too much fun.
Just giggling the whole time. And then the other one that came from prior to this book is Ragban the Tallest, this like dwarf character that thinks he's the most badass person in the world, and lies about all these amazing stories, but he is kind of just a bit of a jabroni. And I wrote his character a very long time ago as well. He's someone that I've had in my back pocket for a long time, so it felt fitting to slide him in here, basically. And any others on your own that you're like, that one specifically I designed?
Well, I was trying to think about if we designed any of them based off like our D&D sessions or anything, and not really. Like, it's actually funny because so we, in our newsletter, we give out a Zephyr every month, basically, and I write those. And the most recent Zephyr that went out was Vinny's.
Yes.
Vinny's Zephyr, who is a character that Tom played in an Orbital Blues session that we ran, which was actually one of my first TTRPG kind of experiences.
Yeah. We do here and there, like there's mention of Catalina being trained by a master smith who is trained by a legend smith, and that legend smith is a reference to a character that Tom played in a TTRPG session in one of our first like TTRPG sessions. So there's deeper reference that are just for like us laced in there as well, mixed with all the other pop culture stuff as well.
I don't actually know if you know this, but Vonda Truth, the barkeep, she's actually based off my friend Beth.
Oh, well, I did not know that.
I was just having
I did not know that. There you go.
I needed some personality traits and
another first. There you go, guys.
There you go.
All right, we're getting all the scoops today. So let me ask you something more of a general design question. What are your most and least favorite things about designing a specific area as opposed to an entire campaign setting? Like, for instance, we got the Wandering Tavern versus Faerun, the Forgotten Realms.
Okay, so this actually applies to our next book, which I think is really
We've been talking about this today.
Yeah, these questions are fucking awesome. So the answer is, with this book, because it's contained, what you have here is like an ecosystem, and every setting that we write can be plugged into your world, or it can be the entire campaign setting if you want it to be. Now, we've made it so that it can be either, but within the Wandering Tavern, there's one culture, which is, this culture of dealing with spirits and, how people live on the Wandering Tavern kind of thing. Though you've got people from all over the world who probably have their own little things that they do individually, there's kind of a unanimous theme and culture going on here. When you write a big campaign world, so our next book is called The Scorched Basin, and it's a Mad Max / Dune-inspired desert setting. And in that we have like 5 factions, we have different terrains, we have a massive map that spans thousands of miles, we have this crazy place, and it just means that the level of detail that we can go into in each place needs to be less, so that we can include more of the land and the information overall of the whole thing. So you get more juicy lore about, the factions specifically and how they work and how they operate, but the NPCs are still super close knit, but you're not going to get 30 that are all from the same place, if that makes sense. So that would be on my end. What about you, Em? Because we talked about this today.
We literally talked about this today, which is so funny. But yeah, so whereas like this one, we have it's like 33 NPCs, and they're all connected and they all live fairly close to each other. So they all have an opportunity to know each other and be connected. So the plot hooks were like kind of easy to write, and also could be way more detailed and like varied, I suppose. Whereas the Scorched Basin, the problem that we're kind of having, not problem, just like a different kind of approach.
It's a different style. It's a different style, yeah.
Yeah, is that we've got these 5 amazing factions who are all so unique and so like different, but like they don't mix as much as the Wandering Tavern do, and they're all so spaced out in this massive area that like we have about 4 or 5 NPCs per faction, and they're key NPCs, and they all have great stuff going on, but you don't get that level of like, oh, Billy is like hiding his lunch, half of his lunch, for Jerry, who's like the homeless guy who sometimes goes to the dock because he's trying to find a Zephyr to get home to his family. Like, you don't get that level of depth, which I think the Scorched Basin is magical in its own way, but the Wandering Tavern is really special to me because it could have all these interactions on a much deeper level.
And I think that's general with smaller settings versus, like you said, a like whether it's a country or a continent or a world. God forbid, that sounds like a nightmare to try and design. But you have once the bigger you get, the less you can write about the specific small things that exist in places. I would love to write about the unique foods that are specifically in certain places. But if I'm writing a continent, it's going to be very hard to when you're editing down to vital information that need to be included for page count and things like that, it becomes harder. So like Emily said, the Scorched Basin is going to be incredible because you get so much expansive, you get so many options. It provides you with this just amazing playing space. But some of that depth is going to be something that GMs are going to have to create while their players are with a specific faction, and meeting the blacksmith and things like that. But again, we provide everyone with abilities to create their own NPCs. We've come up with a really nice system and ways for you guys to build your own NPCs and do all that kind of stuff, and given GMs a little bit of help with all of that. So that would be an answer to that.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I think what's something that's really interesting to me, like trying to run this, is as you say that there's this density to the density of character to everything that's going on in the Wandering Tavern, but that which also like can almost be a bit like of a heavier load. Even as like there's technically like less stuff to worry about when you have this like very self-contained setting. At the same time, it also means that if the players are like go into any given like building and say what's going on here, well, if I remember like every single character like an encyclopedia, I could say here you meet like this and that NPC doing this and that thing, or I might like not have brushed up on that and have to improvise. Dude, that's it. It's such a good point. Like, and I'm sure Syzer and Narid, I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well. Like, if you're trying to play a module, I found this as well. Like, if I'm trying to play a module, I want to be true to the module, but also the whole philosophy of TTRPGs is we improv. Like, we're rolling with the punches, right? And so. I fully agree with you there, Clayton, in terms of like, it's really hard to contain all of that stuff and remember it. Now, sadly, Emily and I will never forget everything within the Wandering Tavern, sadly, and it holds brain space, and we'll never leave that brain space. But I agree with you, dude. I 100% agree with you. There's definitely that thing of like, you have all the information, but that information can at times make you feel constrained with that. Now, we hope that, when you are running this and that you are, going through this, that you use this very similar to Pirates of the Caribbean. These aren't rules, they're guidelines. It's one of those. We want you to use this as a basis for it. So if you remember Don Leon is cranky, cool, make him cranky. If you remember this, that, or the other, apply what you remember. But yeah, dude, there's no perfect way to running this. Like, I like Emily's version of the Wandering Tavern is 1,000 times different to my version of the Wandering Tavern when we run it as TTRPGs. So I'm sure there are also like game masters out there who are like really good at all the like mechanical stuff, but would really love to have like this level of detail so they don't have to like improvise little social encounters. This might be like the right product for them.
Dude, we had someone, hilariously, we had someone comment and be like, there's not enough. I want more lore. I want to know more about these characters. And me and Emily were like, fuck's sake, how much more? Like, Jesus Christ, we're going to be running the session for you if we write any more.
I would actually love to know though. You guys said that you ran the one shot, and I don't know if you've dabbled in anything else in like in a session or anything like that. But I would love to know how that's going and how you guys have found it, and if you guys have any notes for us or anything like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Nya, do you want to take this one?
Oh yeah, sure. So Clayton, our lovely DM. He DMs, at least for me and a couple of the other podcasting members, quite regularly. So we're already a familiar duo. Syzer was coming to join us for a for the one shot. Another player who unfortunately couldn't make the date for our conversation today was also there, and we decided we wanted to be a little bit in the Ghibli spirit. So we played relatively young characters, relatively naive characters, like bright-eyed young kids trying to
Corruptible.
Oh no.
We love it. Yeah. We love it. We love naivety in characters. We love that.
Let's say incorruptible because they're just that good-spirited. But who knows what might still happen.
Even better.
We're talking spunk. We're talking gumption.
Yeah, I played a young gnomish girl. First time I played a female PC. Just because I thought this is what Miyazaki would have wanted,
Yes.
Yeah.
And like starting out, like as I mentioned earlier, it feels very much like obviously it's literally a piece of setting traveling through the sky. You can like plug it in anywhere, which is a pretty smart way of doing it. But at the same time, it wouldn't feel like in the like Ghibli spirit, which is what we were going for, to just have like, oh, you're just some random pilots stumbling upon it. So so like we decided to, or like mostly like I wanted it to like start out in like little small village, and like the initial plot hook is that the local witch, who is a Syzer's character, Syzer's character's name is a Melody, and so Melody's like young like master witch gets kidnapped because something is off about the spirit wards, and they need someone to fix it. And the coven who like originally taught them or like made the designs that have maybe become outdated, maybe something's happened to them, they refuse to work with them for mysterious reasons. And so that becomes like the call to adventure. And then of course like plucky young hero gathers like some people who can help. Njard plays a rogue who like he has a small little Zephyr he's put together, but darn, some ruffians have stolen it. And,
Classic.
Yeah, and our third player plays a very like a monk, drunken fist, old weirdo in town who rumor has it like he has visited the Wandering Tavern once, but he says all sorts of things.
Awesome, great cast.
Yeah, and so that becomes like the trio. A quick little combat to like get the Zephyr, just to get things started, and then landing on the Wandering Tavern and having a very specific and like directly heroic thing to do immediately felt like very useful for what we're doing.
And we met Jane, right? That was the person on the docks who we met?
Yeah.
Jane Murphy, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, she was very helpful to us.
I'm glad. She at times she's been a bit testy in some of our games, so I'm glad she was in a good mood for you guys.
We made some good charisma related rolls for her, so we put our best foot forward.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, and as we are on the trail of the kidnapping, we are tracing it all back to a mysterious Tiger Claw organization. So
okay, well
classic.
I love it. Okay, that sounds pretty. And let me ask you this, guys, as players, you're in this space. A big part for us is immersion. You guys have played you've enjoyed Studio Ghibli for a long time. Let me ask, like, when you're in this and you're in this space, how much of you guys felt like immersed in this space? Was it something that you felt like you could get into quickly, or do you think it took you a little bit more to warm up to some of like the stuff that was going on? How did that play out for you guys?
That played out for me just, ducky. It was peachy keen. We got to the Wandering Tavern. Clayton took a good long time to. Not a good long time, but made a very good description of it. We got to have a look at some of the graphics, of the tavern itself with all the balloons and rotors on it and so forth. So it seemed like an interesting place that you want to dive into right away. That was my experience with it.
Yeah, I was also super immersed. I mean, in the sense of, I'm playing this naive, bright-eyed character, and I'm entering a world of, gambling and gangs and forbidden delights and everything. And, just knowing from the design standpoint that basically behind every closed door, there's something interesting to discover. It made me want to open all of those doors, but I kind of contained myself a little bit just to lessen the burden on our dear GM, and I stuck up a little bit more to the plot. But it definitely is very enticing to just go and explore. So, I'm actually really excited to maybe in more sessions concluding the one shot, and then I'll see what I'll do. Maybe this is something that I would pick up and add to my weekly game as like a part of the big campaign that my players are currently going, because I'm also a DM for my own players. This really just made me very excited. So I was immediately immersed, and I had a lot of fun playing in this constellation, in this setting. So definitely achieved the goal there to create immersion to get me interested.
I will also say that one kind of different thing here is running it as an actual play, with some with specific intention and with the expectation of making it at least somewhat passively entertaining for viewing audience. It adds some different kinds of pressure while alleviating others. We spent a lot of time making sure that everyone was very much on the same page. So as partly to make sure that I didn't have too many weird plates spinning by the time the plot got rolling, and partly to make sure that we could keep the pace up, which when the players are into it, that can feel really good. Though obviously, if it was just a private thing, just let's play a handful of sessions of this fun little setting, make some characters, I would obviously give and the players would need a lot more freedom, including freedom to explore more. So that was that might do a lot to it makes it for a different player and game master experience than private games. There's a lot of what you might call coloring within the lines when we do it like this.
Dude. First of all, you could get me talking about actual play versus home play theory for hours, bro. I have so many theories about how all of that works and what are the best methods and how to do Dude, I'm so nerdy about that specific part of the TTRPG space. We would do very, very similar thing. I know exactly what you're talking about. When we filmed, there's a series we did called Avatar: The Last Breath, which is a prequel to the Avatar: Last Airbender series, where we're playing the Avatar Legends TTRPG. And that whole thing was when we came up with the concept for it, the pitch at the table was cool. We want to play something where everyone dies. That was the objective. We want to TPK at the end of this. The objective is when we get to the end, we TPK, and that's it. And then I started formulating this story and coming up with, it being set during the Firebenders attacking the Air Nation, all this kind of stuff. And dude, the difficulty between running something for home where you can be just rock up with whatever you guys have got and you can discover your characters as you go versus needing to be cool, we need to all have connections here. We need to have motive. Everyone needs to be invested in the story. We need to know, vaguely what are the objectives we're trying to hit here, even if we get there in weird and wonderful ways, and I think, dude, that whole space of actual play versus home play stuff is super interesting. Super, super interesting. But yeah, I understand what you're saying there in terms of as a GM perspective. And by the way, thank you, Syzer and Nard, for saying those lovely words. I'm super stoked you guys got it, got what we were trying to get across. And, if you could see the smile on Emily's face while you guys were saying that stuff, it means a lot to us. It really, really means a lot to us.
Hell yeah.
You're outing me here. Stop it. But no, really, really appreciate it, guys. It's very nice. It's really nice to hear. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, respecting our guest's time, do we want to go ahead and sign off here?
I'm where are you at, Em? When do you need to wrap
I've still
up?
got a bit of
Yeah.
I don't mind.
I can keep going for a little bit longer as well. We probably, should we say another 30 maximum?
Yeah.
Yeah, another 30 minutes maximum. Yeah, that works on our end. If you guys want to keep going for a little
For
bit.
sure.
Sure.
Sounds
yeah.
like a good idea. So about the point, I'll just latch on to that immediately because you mentioned earlier Acquisitions Incorporated, and in the topic of actual play versus home play, one thing that always fascinated me about what Chris Perkins does is whenever a new like big campaign setting book or whatever drops for D&D 5th edition, they have a Acquisitions Incorporated session where he kind of like funhouse dungeons them through it in like 3 hours, and I'm like, how the hell does he cram all of that in there? Like, how do you parade someone through such a complex and multi-layered kind of thing that they've worked into an entire book, but he still manages to like push everyone along, move everyone there, and they even have time for jokes. Like, how the hell do they do that?
Dude, that's because Chris Perkins is a fucking wizard of the coast.
Yeah.
like the guy is, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of Wizards of the Coast, but, Chris Perkins, dude, when I'm looking, I'm not sure about you guys, when I'm looking at my Mount Rushmore, as people call it, or, like your mecca of GMs, for me, Brendan Lee Mulligan sits at the top for me because he's the closest to my style. And then Chris Perkins.
Absolutely. Dimension 20, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Perkins, Abria Iyengar, are right there for me. They're right there in terms of being the best in the world. And so, but I imagine, Nayard, what you're saying, like the point you're making is, I bet they've got some serious planning. I bet before those sessions, they have like a good, like almost like session 0 meeting of being like, cool. What do we want to do in this? Because Chris has some crazy miniatures that we want to get out, and show off, and like all that kind of shit. I imagine they're having conversations like that beforehand. And if they're not, then they are the greatest TTRPG table in history. Because like you said, for them to get through some of the shit they get through in a 3-hour session in front of a live crowd is crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, they are professional performers at the like top level of this particular like medium. So and it's a very particular skill set as well, and that's a very important thing. Like in the like years of like the like height of 5th edition's popularity, people talked about the like the quote unquote Matt Mercer effect. Where like the idea was that like very new players would arrive to a table with all these expectations from Critical Role, which is like probably like still the biggest like D&D like actual play, and a big like a booster of 5th edition's popularity, and being sort of like either disillusioned, disappointed, or having like too high expectations of the game master, things of that nature, and while some immature people like blamed it on like Critical Role or like people being dumb, I think it's definitely a very understandable misunderstanding when these sorts of actual plays, they want to present themselves as you are hanging out with some people playing this fun game, when in actuality what you're seeing are like professional performers doing a like high level like very good performance within the confines of that. And that's a very, very different skill and very different like experience for them than it is for an actual like typical hobbyist player sitting at a table with friends.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. It's a skill gap. It's a straight up skill gap. We, unless you have done acting or you've done improv or you've been on camera or anything like that, getting and doing that, so you're gonna find it really hard. The first, probably first 100 times are really, really difficult. It's not something that comes easy, and getting like timings right and making sure that you deliver a line, in the right way, and like, making sure that it fits. And don't get me wrong, there's no wrong answers because we're at a TTRPG table. But like you said, the performance element of it is like a layer that is way, way deeper. And dude, that Matt Mercer effect is, it's like people loving Nike, like, or Nike, depending on where you're from. It's that vibe, he is the pumpkin spice latte of Dungeon Masters. And, he's great at what he does, and his style is fantastic. But that's like you said, people new to the space are like, oh, I love Critical Role Season 2, God. And you're like, oh, okay. You're like, I see where we're going here. Sure.
But like, just no hate on new players. New players are the best.
Oh, dude, I 100%. As far as a GM, I have run more games for people who have never played TTRPGs before than I have ever run games for people that have. Like,
you should
it's
try
so
getting
fun.
a group together. You know, that might switch it around.
Yeah, dude, it's one of those things I love. I do love new players because they come in with fresh ideas, dude. They come up with shit that seasoned D&D players have spell combos that they know, and they're like, I'm gonna maximize this and do this, that, and the other. Where often new players are just like, they do wild random shit that you just cannot account for, which is great.
Yeah, like that new players tend to look in their inventory and go, can I use this to solve my problem? Whereas the seasoned veteran has already forgotten that this is even possible because they know the mechanics so well.
Yeah,
Literally, bro. Literally.
Yeah, there's that moment where like it clicks for a new player that they aren't like playing like Skyrim or something. The moment where they just like do something random or try something weird and just things happen in the game that just that's just a really great feeling.
Agreed. Fully agree.
I still feel like I'm playing Skyrim most of the time. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. just following the path, trying to stay on the path.
Where's my map marker?
Trying to. Yeah.
Yeah. Your next TTRPG session, buy a chicken and bring it somewhere random. Just see what happens.
Look.
Do something weird.
This is the thing. We've been playing a lot of Pirate Borg.
Yes.
And one of the things in Pirate Borg is that you can have like a pack animal or like an animal of some sort. And I have a goat in our current session, which is
we switched to Ronin for that. Actually.
Yeah, we did actually.
Which is still more based, but we switched to Ronin for that.
But I just always seem to have a fun animal that then I can see this little twinkle in Bodhi's eye, and I just spend every D&D session fearing for this goat's life. I both really recommend and don't recommend at all because it's horrifying.
Emily knows I'm going to kill that fucking goat.
He's really difficult, and I'm going to have to deal with it.
Oh, funny.
But that'll just be more character development. Having gone through that trauma of losing the goat.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, I like grungy shit. So, I put my players through some stuff when it comes to like, I really, if you give me something in your backstory that I can exploit, it's like, I
loves a little traumatization.
Yeah, what one of our friends always talks to me about, he's like, I still have nightmares about one of the things that happened in our TTRPG session. He's like, it still really haunts me. I'm like,
man, but Bodhi, you are the reason why everyone keeps creating orphans.
Yeah, exactly. Literally.
No, you don't understand how real that is, though, because the amount of TTRPG parents I didn't realize would traumatize my character as much as they did.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, you want orphans so that you can have NPCs for me to play with.
So real.
Oh, that's funny. That's really funny.
Yeah, I myself, I'm the type of like big-hearted game master that I like to like reward goodness and make sure that like the characters like stay and remain heroic. I don't believe I've like traumatized people, but I don't know. I haven't heard that feedback
Only
before.
by how ruthlessly you run the monsters. You don't relent.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to kill you. I mean,
they are, and they are doing it successfully.
Do you know what my issue is? I just love watching real humans playing a character dealing with moral quandaries, and that just brings me some sort of weird, sick joy. I think is what's going on my end. Like, I love seeing them struggle with big moral decisions of like, is this person really the bad guy, or is what we're doing going to have other effects that are going to hurt? An example of that is I had a group of players once. They started a rebellion in a city. And that rebellion led to one of their favorite NPCs and has hilariously Don Leon being killed, being like publicly executed, and the city being put into like nighttime curfew. And so, you know, they affected the world so dramatically that they were like, fuck, like when we're trying to do good, we still do bad. And I'm like, hey, that's kind of the repercussions of actions, you know?
Your kind of DM style is like, it's kind of like a twisted therapy. Like, I'm being serious because I have such issues with confrontation. And then a few sessions ago, or whenever it was, my character had been lied to by the whole group really blatantly. And it came to the point where it's like, okay, the session's ended. Next session, I've got to start by like being mad and yelling at some people. And I did, and it was weirdly like
cathartic.
I was like, wow, I can actually yell at these people, and it's fine. No one's gonna hate me afterwards. Maybe a little, but
yeah, I don't know, man. That's the thing. I love telling a good story. To me, a good story has comedy, it has highs, it's got lows, it's got moments where you as a player want to cry, where the audience wants to cry, where you know where people are giggling and laughing, and we're all like chuckling along with each other. You know, I think a well-rounded story should have it all. So you know, that's super important to me when I GM is telling a well-rounded
that does make
story.
sense. It feels like we've started like just trading game tales right now, but
yes.
But what you said like did actually get everything that it does explain a lot about the Wandering Tavern. What you just said, like the that what really excites you is seeing your players and their characters dealing with like these like moral grays and choices, because like getting when I first started reading the module, I expected like this wondrous place, and oh, there's a spirit festival, and oh, there's a baking contest, and then as soon as it got into like, okay, the more like GM need to know stuff going on beneath the surface, it's like, oh, okay, even these characters who might seem on the surface to be like noble people trying to do their best in a bad situation, and then there's just an offhand mention of some like really dark stuff, and I was like, that is interesting. But now I see where that instinct comes from.
it's actually really fun with making the NPCs, because we actually one of like the most rewarding things for me after we published the Wandering Tavern and it was out there and our community had it and everything, is that in our Discord, one of the people in our Discord, a couple of them started having a debate about whether Don Leon was a sympathetic character or not. And that honestly just meant the world to me, because exactly as you were kind of saying, it's so important, I think, to have these kind of like moral gray areas within the characters. Like Emmanuel Emerson, he's the captain of the Wandering Tavern. He's a great example of this, because he's just a guy who's just really ambitious. He just wants to be captain. He's super neat, and he's got like a good amount of control over the ship and all these things. And then he's actually got like weirdly gray backstory about how he got there, and like he's done some stuff that's not great, and it's I don't know, I think it's really rewarding having characters that feel like real people, because they have the good and the bad, you know. And we definitely try to do a lot of that in the Wandering Tavern.
Do you know what it stems from? For me at least, it stems from something my grandmother used to say to me, which is, don't ever wish for someone else what someone else has, because you don't know how they got it and you don't know how they're retaining it.
Yeah.
And like that to me like just speaks like volumes of like, you know, and any character from the outside can look a certain way, but when you dive deeper, you know, Batman, you know, he's this crazy dude who runs around just punching petty criminals because his parents got killed. You're like, is that a good guy or a bad guy? I'm really not sure. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, you know? And so I think that kind of stuff, we really, you and I also love that about characters. I think we both align on the fact of like, oh man, did you see this? And oh, they really like showed themselves. They showed them true selves here, you know, kind of thing. And we really like that kind of stuff. So yeah, very, very much so. I'm glad you got that from your reading.
Little bit of a spoiler from the Scorched Basin, but one of the factions who I'm really proud of, it's one of the Dune-inspired factions. Their whole thing is that they're nomads. They love the earth, they love the moon, they're super in touch with like their surroundings and nature and all this stuff.
Balance.
And they're all about balance. And then basically it's like they get into combat, no one leaves alive. Like they will just slaughter everybody. They don't do mercy, they don't do like letting anybody go or any of that.
No prisoners.
So it's this balance of, this tribe that's like really sweet and lovely and connected to nature, but they're also absolute savages, and like
they'll do anything to protect that nature.
They'll do anything to protect it, and like if you mess up in their society, you lose a hand. Like it's absolutely savage. I just think the good and the bad, I love it when it goes hand in hand. That scratches such an itch.
Yeah. Agreed.
Got kind of a Game of Thrones philosophy there in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. Yeah, and you know what? I think shout out to George R. R. Martin. More people should be happy killing off main characters. We need to kill more main characters. That's too much plot armor out here for people. We need to change that a little bit.
Normalize killing your darlings.
Yes. Oh my God.
one.
Me and Emily, when we're writing stuff and we're like, should this be in the book or not? We always say, kill your babies. We literally say that to each other while we're writing. Exactly. Dead on.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. I had, when we're talking about Wandering Tavern or anything that you've written before, have you ever been surprised by any particular kind of feedback that you've gotten? Like, did people get something out of it that you just weren't intending for them to? Or did they have something that really just kind of set you on your heels?
I know what you're going to bring up as well. I know exactly what you're going to fucking bring up. Go on, Em. Tell them all about the spiders.
I'll tell them about the spiders. So one of the tiny plot hooks in the Wandering Tavern is there's probably not 100 words across the whole book. There's probably not more than 100 words about these spiders. And I adored this little spider quest. We've got a couple of items where you can like shrink down or grow, very Alice in Wonderland style, so you can go and have this like whole spider quest. And I loved it so much. And that was one of the ones where Bodhi was like, Emily, I think you need to kill this baby. It makes no sense. It's weird. No one's going to be interested. Like,
why are we doing some little spider Game of Thrones arc in the middle of all of this? I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah. And Bodhi was just not at all impressed. The first thing, I'll tell you this, the first thing that people came back and were like telling us about their stories and telling us about their campaigns and stuff that they've run inside the Wandering Tavern, which in itself was just so amazing and so like mind-blowing, and like it's just it's such a great feeling, but the people were really eating up the spider Game of Thrones and had all these stories about it, and it was just by far the most talked about thing.
Literally.
The pride and joy.
So many people for some reason were like, oh yeah, I'm running the spider Game of Thrones plot hook because it's just awesome. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, how out of all these amazing cool things is that the bit that people are like, but that's like you said, the beautiful surprise of some of this, the beautiful surprise.
Yeah, I mean, just skimming through it, like so some of the plot hooks are like, this might happen. Like, you might go down to this basement to search for this, or you might talk to this person and learn this, and then like you keep scrolling, like, you might shrink down and fight a bunch of spiders. It's like, hang on, what? When? Like, I get why people like get caught up by that.
And when you think about it, hilariously, if you really think about how deep Emily opened the door to this, which I think is, again, why I love Emily as a writing partner. She's the fucking best for this shit, dude. And like, you could play a campaign inside the Wandering Tavern and never be more than the size of a spider. You could do this whole like spider arc that Emily's written, and you could never even engage with any of the other stuff in the Wandering Tavern and still play a whole campaign there, which I think, a testament to Emily's incredible writing abilities of, how inspired people have been by what she creates.
Stop it. Yeah, no, that is generally the dream. I'm waiting for the day that someone's like, hey, can I run the spider Game of Thrones for you? Because I just want to do it.
Well, that's really cool. Spider Game of Thrones, I didn't expect to hear that, I have to admit, when I asked that question.
Yeah. Do you know what, as well, like, I think what was interesting as well, we cross boundaries in certain ways with some of these books. We like to, part of what we want to do, and another one of our tenets at Homie and the Dude, is innovation. So like our next book, we're taking to the next level. There's going to be things in that, we're introducing languages that are, based on real language that will teach you sign language and Morse code and things like this. We're doing, a soundtrack. We're doing fucking cooking videos. Like it's
too much, honestly.
The next book's going to be
insane.
insane, basically. And I think, the magnitude at which we go with all this and the stuff that we have been able to do, with the Wandering Tavern, we try and cross some lines and come up with new shit. So another thing people talked about was the illicit substances, interestingly.
Yeah.
People mentioned, obviously we've included drugs in this book because we feel like for a mafia setting, realistically, they're probably trading in some sort of narcotics or illicit substances of some sort, and illicit items, as we also have in there, which are hilarious. But, people talked about that and they were like, I really like this inclusion. I really like that you guys went this way. And, we were very unsure about how that was going to be received. We wrote a whole, section at the top that, is a disclaimer about, using drugs. We provided, resources for people at the end to help anyone who is suffering with addiction and things like that. So, we had a lot of actually compliments about that, which we were not expecting. We were both like, who knows how that's going to be received? And that ended up coming back with some nice compliments as well, which we were pretty stoked about.
I think the other thing that actually genuinely surprised me, which I think it was more of like an insecurity thing, to be honest. But like, obviously, so I came at the Wandering Tavern very much from like a novel perspective. I hadn't done too many TTRPGs when we started this. Like at this point, I've done a lot, but when we first started writing it, I hadn't really. So I was more writing characters for a story rather than like specifically for a TTRPG. And I was really not sure if the people in the TTRPG world were going to like the sheer amount of lore and like plot hook and descriptions and stuff. Because like I've read other TTRPG books, and I did while I was writing this to like make sure we were on the right track. And like it's all like 1 or 2 line descriptions, maybe a paragraph. And like some of our NPCs have like lore upon lore, like. So I was really worried about that, but we had a survey go round for the people who bought Wandering Tavern, and we're honestly very lucky because a lot of people came back and like gave us feedback. And like one of the questions in the survey was like, how did you like the amount of lore? And most people wanted more, if not liked the amount. So yeah, that was a big relief for me, and I was quite surprised at that because I thought we were going to have to really narrow it down in the next book. But
it refined our writing style for the next book.
Yeah,
for sure. I think that's a great shout out.
That's.
I mean that might not even be like a practical matter of like, I if I had more information, I would have run something better. It might just be that like it's good writing, and you want more good writing.
Thanks. That's nice.
I agree with that, and I think it might also be a case of indie does what D&D don't. Where the D&D books don't really dive into that much specific detail, at least not the ones that I've read, about the settings that they are dealing with, because there's just so much there. It's it's a problem of macro versus micro.
Yeah.
So
that's a super solid point, dude. Super solid point. I like fully agree with you. You read Dragon Heist Waterdeep, and you tell me, give me a personality trait from any of the characters in that book, other than like famous Xanathar and Jarlaxle vibes. You can't, because they haven't really included much. It's one of those things, and I think and it's a testament again to I lucked out, guys. Like straight up, you heard it here. I lucked out fucking having Emily join this writing team. Without Em, my style is good, but Emily elevates that lore stuff to new levels that, without Em, the book would be shittier, to say the least.
You've gotta watch what you're saying, Bodhi, because I'm not gonna be able to leave here with how big my head's gonna get.
Get through the doorway. Yeah, true.
All right. Well, I think we are just about out of time for this discussion. So is there anything anything anyone wanted to get said here at the tail end?
Well, where can we find Homie and the Dude's products?
I was about to say a couple of different things. So first of all, guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your days. I know we all have jobs, we all have stuff that we're doing, we all have families, partners, whatever. So just super appreciate you taking the time to, run a session in our world, to give any interest to what we are, which is just a small family team out here in the UK, and, just super appreciate that you guys have done this and asked all these amazing questions and everything like that. Like, really, truly appreciate it, guys. Thank you for that.
It's our pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's a rare opportunity to talk with the creator of something you've enjoyed. That's a privilege all its own.
Yeah.
Oh, dude,
It means a lot.
Dude, I appreciate you saying that. And to find Homie and the Dude stuff, we are Homie and the Dude everywhere. So you can find us on all the social medias, all the platforms. If you want to see our video content, our backlog of legacy video content, it's on YouTube. We also do monthly UFC live streams and a bunch of other stuff. So if you want to see any of that stuff, you can find us on Twitch and things like that. However, if you're looking to collect one of our amazing settings written by Emily and myself and a bunch of other incredible creators like Alexander Caustic, Art of Caustic, our artist, who is doing all the art for all of our books for all of time, or as long as we can, as long as he's alive. Chris Hopper, our incredible layout artist, Vic, our map maker, Tallulah, our video editor, all of these incredible people. If you want to see stuff made by that team, check out homieandthedude.com, or you can look up our Kickstarter, specifically Syzers or the Wandering Tavern, and you'll find links through there to come and do that. Final thing I'd add is you can also join our Discord server, where we have an awesome, diverse community of creators, players, and people who just want to hang out and be part of a group of people that love TTRPGs, nerdness, being ourselves, and having a good time. So if you want to join our Discord server, we'd be glad for anyone to do that. And we have a newsletter as well, where you can get free content from Homie and the Dude. We give you airships once a month, and once Scorched Basin releases, we'll be giving you land-based vehicles as well as airships alternating, and things like that. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, and check us out in late 2025 for the Scorched Basin, the most innovative, next level TTRPG book that we're going to have seen in the space, guys. So keep your eyes peeled for that one as well.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Was about to ask about Scorched Basin, if you had any dates in mind, but late 2025 is what we're getting. I guess that's something to look forward to then.
We can't ask for all the exclusives. Yeah, we got a couple, so we're good.
Yeah. Mid to late 2025, we're gonna be showing it off at Gen Con first of all, and then we are going to be running the Kickstarter sometime after that, basically. But yeah, we're super excited. Oh, and I'll throw this out there as well. We also have this is an exclusive as well for you guys. We have 4 awesome creators who are writing content for the Scorched Basin that are like DLC expansions that go along with the book, basically. 4 big YouTubers who I won't disclose their names yet. I'll let them put it out on their socials first. But we are super excited to be collaborating with amazing people, some of our favorite creators in the space, who have written some banging extra content for this book that's going to take your games to an even higher level. So we're stoked about that as well.
Very cool.
Sounds like you've got a lot going on.
No shit.
Syzer, since you are technically a guest for this podcast, anything you want to plug?
Sure. If you want to check out my podcast, Round the Table, you can look at Skies of Fortune on YouTube. Skies of Fortune is also the name of my indie TTRPG project, the Sky Pirate RPG. Currently, the easiest place to find us is on Blue Sky at skiesoffortune.bsky.social, or on Twitter under the same name. Also, let's see, we have a Discord as well. If you're interested, you can just ping me on one of those social medias, and I will get you an invite.
Oh yeah. And guys, subscribe to the YouTube channel or the service that you're listening to this amazing podcast on. Help out these incredible creators that have brought me and Emily on. Come on, get to it, get out there. Go help Syzer out, go help these guys out. We're a small community. Get behind some people. Come on, folks, get behind these creators.
Thanks for the call for engagement. Means I don't gotta do it into my in my post recording outro. But yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah. This I think we're done patting each other on the backs and giving each other compliments. Couple of compliments out to the listeners. You are also amazing and great, and probably ask great questions and give great answers as well. Though we couldn't get to that, couldn't we, dear listeners? So
Get in the comments. Get in the comments.
Get in the comments and start interviewing each other. Around the party.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
Right,
Thank
then.
you.
It was a pleasure having you on. Really great time. And with that, I think we're about to end the recording. So bye-bye, everybody.
Hell yeah.
See ya.
Thank you guys so much.
Later.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this podcast. We really, really hope you enjoyed. Otherwise, we hope you have a really, really awesome day. Thank you so much for watching, Homie and the Dude. And we'll catch you next time.